Rabbi Abraham J. Twerski was a dear friend of mine. A rabbi has many acquaintances, but he has few friends. Twerski and I, we knew each other for 75 years. He was in the Chicago Yeshiva and Beis Medrash Torah in the 1940s and early 1950s. I was there also. He received his smicha in 1951. I did not receive my smicha until 1955. He was older than I was. He was far more clever and original than I was. But nevertheless, somehow we befriended each other, or he befriended me, let's put it that way. And he was an Ilui. He was a genius. Rabbi Kreisler, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, who was our Rosh Yeshiva, said that even in Europe, in Lublin, Twerski would be considered an Ilui. I remember Rabbi Kreisler used to give a Bechina 25 blot, Gemara, Rashi, and Tosfos, closed book. He had to know it by heart. So I worked on it 2 to 3 months before I took the Bechina. Twerski worked on it a week. He put us to shame. And Twerski was a great pantomimist. He was our Purim Rebbe. One year he had a pantomime of a Litvish Rosh Yeshiva lighting a cigarette. That was the whole plot. And it took 10 minutes, and the Rabbeim, no one could control themselves from the laughter. And he naturally did a deadpan. So he was going to be a rabbi. His brother was a rabbi in Denver. His other younger brothers I knew very well. His father was the Rebbe in Milwaukee, Hasidic Rebbe in Milwaukee. His father was an enormously interesting Jew. I remember that his father used to come to visit in the yeshiva. So when he came to visit in the yeshiva, he never sat in on the Gemara shiurim, on the Limudei Kodesh, on the rabbinic studies. But he would sit in on the secular studies program. I remember he was sitting in our room when we were learning Latin. So I remarked on that to my father, and my father, who knew the Rebbe very well. So my father said to the Rebbe, it's a strange thing. You don't sit in on the Gemara, but you sit in to hear Latin. So he said to my father, he said, I know they're not going to cheat me on the Gemara. I want to make sure they're not cheating me on the secular studies. It was a remarkable. And the Shia told me that his father was the greatest natural therapist, mental therapist that he ever saw. And that, so to speak, was his profession. People came and told him tzoros. I mean, that's really what a Rebbe is. Nobody comes and tells you how great they're doing. Nobody comes and tells you how happy their marriage is. Nobody comes and tells you how wonderful their children are. You only hear troubles. And you hear them day in and day out, hour upon hour. So you have to really be a somebody to be able to take it, to listen to it. I know in my own experience as a rabbi, and I'm not a rebbe, there's a big difference. But there are days that I can't take it anymore. Just last Sunday, I had four disastrous phone calls, one after another. What am I supposed to do? But you have to listen, and you have to try and help, and you have to feel the compassion. So Shia learned that from his father. He learned how to be a psychiatrist from his father. Now, naturally, he had to go to college, and he had to go to medical school, and he had to do an internship, and he had to do a residence. But how to be a mental therapist of his quality, that he learned from a Hasidic Rebbe, his father. And that made all the difference. It made all of the difference. I always used to tell him, you're a fraud. And he would say, what do you mean? I said, you're not a psychiatrist, you're a Rebbe. A psychiatrist, you're charging $500 an hour or whatever. A Rebbe's free. He would laugh. But there's a kernel of truth to that. He was basically a Hasidic Rebbe. So he was an expert on alcoholism, on addiction, on drugs, on every torah shalotovot that exists in the world. And he had compassion on these people. Absolute compassion. He empathized with them. And it didn't make any difference who the person was. He was the psychiatrist for the Roman Catholic Church diocese in Pittsburgh. So all the Galachim, all the priests came to him. He had many hilarious stories with that. But they felt that they were dealing with a holy person, not just with a psychiatrist. An enormous Kiddush Hashem. How to sanctify God's name. That people who are not of your faith, who are officially not of your faith, and who think that somehow you are wrong theologically, nevertheless consider you to be a holy person. Nevertheless, they consider that you're the one that can help them. And there was no one in life more industrious than he was. He didn't know what it was to waste time. So he wrote, I think, 85 books. 85 books. I used to think I was a knacker, I wrote 25 books. He used to tell me, Berel, you're an amateur. But then he said, I want to tell you, the difference between you and me is I've written 85 books, but it's really one book 85 times. And you've written 25 books, but it's 25 different books. What was the one topic that he wrote about, he said, 85 times? That was self-worth. The importance of a person to feel self-worth. And he said that all addictions and all problems come from the fact that we don't have the proper regard for ourselves. We don't see our soul, our neshama. And because of that, we drink, we take drugs, we're addicted to what we think are pleasures. It's all because inside I'm empty. And he emphasized over and over again how important it was for parents, for educators, to instill self-worth into the child. Because then you would avoid all problems. He used to tell me often, he said, off the derech is simply because the guy doesn't see himself. Doesn't feel that he's important. And you go to the yeshiva and they make you feel less important. And you come home with a bad report card, your parents say you're an idiot. So he said, so you go up and you drink and you go and you do whatever you want to do. Remarkable insight. The Gemara says on Reb Shimon ben Yochai, he said, Ra'isi b'nei aliyah v'hei mu'atim. In my life, he said, I have seen b'nei aliyah. B'nei aliyah, we translate it to be people of superior abilities, talents, motives. But I always thought that B'nai Aliyah means people that always progress. They're always going up. Most of us are satisfied the way we are. We're not satisfied with our automobile or with our home or with our wealth, and sometimes not even with our family, God forbid. But we're satisfied with where we are. This is my level of Torah. This is my level of spirit. This is my level of understanding. This is my level of knowledge. I'm not going back to school anymore. I'm happy where I'm at. That's not a Ben Aliyah. A Ben Aliyah always wants to be better. He wants to be more. Ve'ein mu'atim, he said. There are very few people I know like that. Most people are happy the way they are. It's good. It's 85%. It's b'diavad. It's a Rabbanan, whatever they say. Twerski was never satisfied. Till his last day, he's still doing it. At a very advanced age, he's still writing books. He's still giving lectures. I saw an interview that he gave 6 months ago, 7 months ago. And then Reb Shimon ben Yochai said, if there are 36 such people, then my son and I, Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon, and we're part of them. But he said, even if there are only 2, then my son and I are the 2. That's the ultimate self-worth. I'm a Ben Aliyah. Even if nobody else is. And I've raised my son to be one too. And therefore, it's not an expression of hubris or of arrogance or of pride. It's a statement of self-worth. I'm a Ben Aliyah. Twerski was a Ben Aliyah. And anybody that knew him, it rubbed off on you. It made you also think of yourself. So here's a Hasidic Rebbe going to medical school, conducting a correspondence with the Stipler Gaon in Bnei Brak, who was telling him how to be a Hasidic Rebbe in the medical school. Where do you find people like that? Where do you find people that have such a breadth of vision, such an expansive soul, such a personality? He and I were very close. He would just call me for no reason and say, Berel, what do you need? He told me, Shia, what do you want from me? Well, this should be done, or that should be done, or, this is a good idea, or this is a good book to read. That's a friend. That's somebody that cares. The Jewish world was so much richer having him. The problem with being richer is that when it's not there anymore, you're poorer. And we are poor. We're missing such a Rebbe. We're missing someone that spans societies and generations, who sees the whole picture, who's not frightened, who's not terrorized by the world, and who clearly sees his vision is to help people, to do God's work, to be a loyal servant, to be aware that whatever we do, we're giving back to the Lord who created it. To live such a life and be such an influence upon so many. Yehei Zichro Baruch. He certainly is a blessing for all of us who knew him. Thank you.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.